My daughter got married and never told me. I found out on Facebook, sitting alone at my kitchen table in Pet 1 at 4:20 in the morning, squinting at a photo of her in a white dress next to a man whose last name I still couldn't spell properly. I didn't call her. I didn't send a message. The next morning, I rang my solicitor and put her house on the market. The house I'd spent 25 years saving for. That was my wedding present to her. If this story is hurting your heart, hit subscribe. Every day, there's a story on this channel that might be yours. Tell us where you're watching from. 4:15 in the morning. My bladder woke me, same as it does most nights now. I shuffled to the bathroom, did what I needed to do, and on the way back to bed I noticed the phone glowing on the nightstand. A notification. Facebook. My neighbor Maureen from 2 doors down had set it up for me about 3 months earlier. She'd come round with a plate of pikelets and said, "Neville, you need to get on Facebook. That way you can see what Megan's up to, see her photos, keep in touch." I told her I didn't see the point. Megan barely rings me as it is, why would she talk to me on the internet? Maureen laughed and said, "It's not about talking. It's about seeing." So she set it all up, showed me how to scroll, how to tap the little thumbs up button. I nodded along and forgot most of it by the next day. But that night, that awful night, I opened the app because I couldn't get back to sleep and the flat was too quiet. The first thing I saw was a photo of my daughter, Megan. My only child. She was wearing a long white dress with lace across the shoulders. Her hair was pinned up with little flowers woven through it. She was holding a bouquet of native bush flowers, white ribbons trailing down. And she was looking at the man beside her the way she used to look at me when I came through the door after work and she'd run down the hall shouting, "Daddy's home." The man was in a dark blue suit. Slim fit, expensive. His hair was slicked back. He had one arm around her waist and they were standing under an arch covered in greenery, somewhere with hills and vineyards behind them. Marlborough, maybe. Or Hawke's Bay. Somewhere beautiful that I had never been invited to. I tapped the screen and more photos loaded. There were dozens. A long table set up outdoors under string lights. Crystal glasses. White napkins folded into shapes. Platters of food that looked like they belonged in a magazine. And people, 40, 50, maybe 60 people, all dressed up, all smiling, all raising their glasses. I brought the phone closer to my face and started looking for myself. I scrolled through every single photo, zooming in on faces at each table, checking the background of every shot. I was looking for my face, my shirt, my frame. Anything that would tell me I had been there and just couldn't remember. But I wasn't there. I wasn't anywhere. My name is Neville Pascoe. I'm 69 years old. I live alone in a 1-bedroom council flat in Mora, Lower Hutt. And at 4:20 in the morning, I was staring at my daughter's wedding photos, trying to work out how my life had come to this. I went back to the main photo. The one with the arch underneath it. Megan had written a caption. "The best day of our lives. Surrounded by the people who truly matter." 11 words. And not one of them was Dad. I kept scrolling. There was a photo of the groom's parents. His father, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and a tan that said he'd just come back from Fiji, was standing with his arm around Megan. The mother, a slim woman in a cream dress and pearl earrings, was kissing Megan on the cheek. They were beaming. All 3 of them. Like a family. Like Megan was their daughter now. Then I saw the comment underneath. The groom's father had written, "Welcome to the family, sweetheart. We couldn't be prouder." And Megan had replied with a little red heart. I put the phone face down on the table. Then I picked it up again 5 seconds later and looked at the photos one more time. I counted the tables. 8. About 8 people per table. Over 60 guests. 60 people who knew about the wedding before I did. 60 people who were more important than her father. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after that. I didn't cry. My eyes burned, yes. My chest felt like someone was standing on it. But the tears didn't come. Maybe I'd used them all up in the hospital, holding Joan's hand while she slipped away, while Megan was too busy to answer her phone. Or maybe the pain was just too big for tears. It was bigger than that. It was an emptiness. A hole in my chest where a daughter used to be. I need to go back. I need to tell you who I am, because otherwise none of this makes sense. I started work at 16. Left 9A college halfway through the 6th form because my old man said there was no money for me to sit around reading books when there were houses that needed building. He got me an apprenticeship with a building firm in Petwan. Day 1, the foreman looked me up and down and said, "You're skinny, but you'll do. Grab those bags of cement and take them round the back." I did what I was told. For 42 years, I did what I was told. I carried timber in the rain. I poured concrete in the summer heat. I framed walls, hung doors, laid foundations. I worked through 3 recessions, 2 earthquakes, and a pandemic. I started at $8 an hour and finished at $35. I never complained. I never took a sickie. I showed up every single day because I had a family to feed. Look at these hands. Go on, look at them. This knuckle here, on my right hand, it's been crooked since a scaffolding pole rolled off a stack and landed on a back in 1991. This scar across my palm is from a circular saw that kicked back while I was cutting weatherboards on a job in Karori. These calluses, these deep lines, these nails that are never quite clean no matter how long I scrub them in the shower, this is what 42 years of building other people's homes does to you. These hands never signed a big contract. Never held a university degree. Never touched anything delicate. They just worked. They just gave. They just built the life my daughter has now. When Megan was 9, she came home from school in tears. The other girls were making fun of her school shoes. They were from the warehouse, 2 sizes too big so they'd last the year, and the sole was already coming away at the toe. I looked at her little face, red and wet with shame, and I said, "Tomorrow you'll have new shoes." That night I picked up an extra shift. Got home at midnight, body wrecked, hands cracked from the cold. The next morning, I took her to Hannah's in Queen State and bought her the shoes she wanted. Black ones with a little silver buckle. They cost me $90. That was my food budget for the fortnight. But when I saw her step out of the shop, swinging the bag, I knew it was worth every cent, worth every aching muscle, every hour of sleep I didn't get. Joan and I got married young. I was 23, she was 21. We had Megan when I was 35. Joan worked part-time at the Pack and Save in Petwan, and between our 2 wages we kept our heads above water. We never went on holiday. Never owned a new car. Never ate at a restaurant unless it was fish and chips from the shop on Jackson Street, eaten on a bench looking out at the harbor. And even then, Joan would say, "This is a treat, Neville. Don't get used to it." I started saving for the house the year Megan was born. 1992. I opened a separate account at the B&Z and every payday, I put in whatever I could. Sometimes it was $200. Sometimes $50. There were months when it was $20 because Megan needed a new uniform or Joan needed to see the doctor or the car needed a warrant. But I always put something in. Always. 25 years. 25 years of saying no to things so I could say yes to that house. While the other blokes at work bought boats, I kept driving my Hilux with the rust coming through the wheel arches. While they went up to Taupo for long weekends, I stayed home and picked up Saturday jobs. "Not going away this summer, Nev?" They'd ask. "Nah, not this year," I'd say. But the truth was, I never went anywhere. Every dollar I didn't spend on myself was a dollar closer to that house. In 2017, I had $340,000 in that account. I went to the bank and asked to withdraw it. The teller looked at me like I was robbing the place. "That's a lot of money, sir." "Are you sure?" I told her I was sure. She arranged a bank check because you can't just hand over that much cash. I took it to the real estate agent on Jackson Street and bought a 2-bedroom wooden bungalow in the back streets of Petwan. It was small. The paint was peeling. The bathroom leaked. The kitchen had lino from the 70s. But it had a little deck out the back with a view of the hills, and when I stood on that deck, I could picture Megan sitting there with a cup of tea, safe, warm, with a roof that no landlord could ever take away. Megan was 25 when I gave her the keys. She'd finished her business degree, got her first proper job at a firm in the city, and was paying $800 a week for a shoebox flat in Te'ero. I called her up and asked her to come over. She sat down at my kitchen table, looking confused. I slid the keys across to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Your house," I said. "I bought it. With everything I've saved. It's yours. So you never have to worry about rent again. So you always have somewhere to come home to." She stared at the keys. Then she looked at me. And she cried. She stood up, came around the table, and hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. I felt her breath shaking against my shoulder. I felt her tears soaking through my shirt. "Dad," she said, and her voice was breaking. "Dad, thank you. I don't know how to thank you. This is the most incredible thing anyone has ever done for me." I put my hand on her head, the way I used to when she was small and had nightmares. "You don't have to thank me, love. Just be happy. And remember your old man every now and then." She pulled back, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "I will never forget what you've done for me. Never." I hear that promise every night when I go to bed alone. I never transferred the title. I gave her the keys, told her it was hers, and she moved in with all her things. But the paperwork, the deed, the legal ownership, it all stayed in my name. It wasn't deliberate. The conveyancing fees were expensive, and I thought, what's the rush? It's all going to her when I die anyway. Why waste money on lawyers? But deep down, if I'm honest, I liked knowing it was still mine. Because after giving her my entire life, that house was the only proof I had that I existed. That I had done something. That I had been a good father. Joan died on a Thursday afternoon in March, 4 years ago. Bowel cancer. By the time they found it, it had spread to her liver. She lasted 11 months from diagnosis. I was there every single day. I slept in the chair next to her hospital bed at Hutt Hospital. I held her hand when the morphine wore off and she cried from the pain. I wiped her face with a damp cloth. I read to her from her favorite book, the one by that Kiwi author she loved, even though my voice kept cracking. Megan came twice in those 11 months. Twice. The first time, she stayed for an hour. The second time, 40 minutes. She had meetings. She had deadlines. She had things to do. Joan asked for her every day near the end. "Where's Megan?" She'd whisper, her voice thin as paper. I'd lie to her. "She's on her way, love. She's coming." But she wasn't coming. I'd ring Megan and it would go to voicemail. I'd text her, "Your mom is asking for you." And she'd reply hours later, "Sorry, Dad. Crazy day at work. I'll try to come tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. Joan died on a Thursday at 3:10 in the afternoon. I was holding her hand when she stopped breathing. Megan arrived at 4:30, an hour and 20 minutes late. She walked in smelling of coffee and perfume, her coat still buttoned. "Sorry, Dad. The traffic on the motorway was awful." Traffic. Her mother was dead, and she blamed the traffic. 2 years ago, Megan rang me on a Sunday evening. I was washing my dinner plate, the one plate I use because why bother with more when you eat alone? "Dad, I want you to meet someone," she said. Her voice had a brightness I hadn't heard in months. "His name is Reese. Reese Kingsley. And I really want you to meet him." My heart lifted. My girl had found someone. "Of course, love. Bring him round." I'll do a roast. There was a pause. Actually, Dad, let's meet at a cafe. It'll be easier. I didn't understand why a cafe was easier than my kitchen, but I said yes. We agreed to meet the following Saturday at a place on Courtney Place. I'd never set foot in it. The kind of place where a flat white costs $7 and the food comes on a wooden board instead of a plate. I got there 20 minutes early. Wore my good shirt, the checked one Joan bought me years ago that I keep for special occasions. Polished my shoes. Scrubbed my hands until they were raw, though the scars and calluses don't scrub off. I sat at a table in the corner and waited. When they walked in, I stood up straight away. Megan looked beautiful. New dress, hair done, a handbag I'd never seen before. And beside her was Reese. Tall, clean-shaven, tailored jacket, the kind of watch that costs more than my car. He walked like a man who'd never had to worry about anything in his life. I stepped forward with a big smile. Reese, great to meet you, mate. Megan's told me about you. He looked at me. It wasn't a quick glance. His eyes went to my shirt first, the one that was slightly faded at the collar. Then down to my hands, to the crooked knuckle, to the calluses, to the nails that are never quite clean. Then back up to my face. Pleasure, he said. No smile. No handshake. His hand stayed in his jacket pockets like touching me might leave a mark. I lowered the hand I'd extended and shoved it in my pocket, feeling my face go hot. We sat down. I ordered a long black. They ordered something I couldn't pronounce. During the whole meeting, Reese barely spoke to me. When I asked him questions, he answered in one or two words, looking at Megan as if waiting for her to translate. So what do you do, Reese? Finance. Ah, that's interesting. Whereabouts? My father's firm. And how's the family? Good. Silence. Megan filled the gaps by talking about the weather, some show they were watching, the new restaurant they'd tried. I nodded. I smiled. I tried to seem interesting. But I felt invisible. Like I was furniture. When we finished, I reached for my wallet. Let me get this, love. No, Dad. Megan said it quickly, almost snatching the bill from my hands. We've got it. Reese looked at her with a nod of approval. Like she'd done the right thing. Like keeping the old man's money off the table was part of the plan. After that, everything changed. Slowly at first, then all at once. Megan's visits to my flat got shorter. She used to come on Sundays and stay all afternoon. We'd have a cup of tea, watch the rugby if the All Blacks were playing, just talk. After she met Reese, she'd come for an hour, sometimes less, and she was always checking her phone. Sorry, Dad. Gotta run. Reese is picking me up. At first, I didn't mind. She was in love. I understood. But then I started to notice a pattern. It wasn't just that she was busy. It was that she didn't want Reese to know she was with me. She'd whisper when she rang. Dad, I'm with Reese. Can I call you later? But she never called later. When I texted, it took her hours to reply. And when she did, it was 2 words. Busy, Dad. Talk soon. One afternoon, I invited her for a Sunday roast. I'd done the lot. Leg of lamb from the butcher on Jackson Street. Roast potatoes, kamara, peas, gravy from scratch. I even made a pavlova for dessert, following Joan's recipe from the stained card she kept in the kitchen drawer. I set the table with the good tablecloth, the one we only used at Christmas. I rang her, excited. Megan, love. I've done a roast. Your mom's lamb. Are you coming? Silence. I can't, Dad. We're having lunch with Reese's family in Remuera. I stood there with the phone in my hand, looking at the table set for 2, the lamb still resting in the pan, the pavlova cooling on the bench. Am I not family? I asked. My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. Another silence. Longer. Another time, Dad, she said. And she hung up. I sat down at the table and carved 2 slices of lamb. Put them on my plate with a scoop of kamara and some peas. Poured the gravy. It was perfect. Joan would have been proud. But it tasted like nothing. I ate alone, listening to the sound of my knife and fork against the plate, the ticking of the clock on the wall, the absolute silence of a flat where nobody visits anymore. The weeks after were more of the same. Calls getting shorter. Visits disappearing. And when she did come, she stood near the door with her coat on, as if she was in a hurry to leave before Reese drove past and saw her car outside my building. One Sunday, she rang to cancel again. We're going to Waiheke for the weekend with Reese's parents. And when do I get to see you, Megan? I asked. It's been 5 weeks. She sighed. That sigh. The sigh of someone who is tired of being bothered. Dad, don't start. I have a life. I know you do, love. I just miss you. Another sigh. I'll come next week. Promise. She didn't come. Not the next week, or the week after, or the week after that. Megan's 34th birthday fell on a Saturday in September. I woke up at 6 with one thought in my head. I was going to make her Joan's Afghans. The chocolate biscuits with the cornflakes and the walnut on top that Megan loved as a kid. She used to sit on the kitchen bench while Joan mixed the batter and she'd sneak spoonfuls of the raw mix when Joan pretended not to notice. I went to the countdown on the corner and bought the ingredients. Butter, cocoa, flour, cornflakes, icing sugar, walnuts. I spent most of what I had left for the week, but I didn't care. It was my daughter's birthday. Fathers celebrate their children, always, even when the children forget to celebrate back. I spent the morning in my kitchen mixing by hand, rolling the dough into balls, baking them in my old oven that heats unevenly so you have to rotate the tray halfway through. While they cooled, I made the chocolate icing and pressed a walnut half into each one. They weren't perfect. Some were lopsided, some had too much icing. But I made them with love. That had to count for something. At 5 o'clock, I put the biscuits in a tin, wrapped it with a ribbon Joan had kept in the hall cupboard, and drove to the house. Her house. The house I bought with 42 years of breaking my body. When I turned into her street, I noticed the cars. A black Range Rover. A white Tesla. A silver Audi. Expensive cars that didn't belong in Pet One. Music was coming from inside. Laughter. I could hear it from the footpath. I walked up to the front door. There were balloons tied to the letterbox. Gold and black. Elegant. Expensive. My heart started hammering. There was a party. A birthday party. And I wasn't invited. I knocked. The music kept playing. The voices kept laughing. I knocked again. The door opened. Megan stood there in a black cocktail dress, her hair done up, a glass of champagne in her hand. When she saw me, her face changed. The smile vanished. Her eyes went wide with something that wasn't happiness. It was panic. Dad. It came out like a whisper. What are you doing here? It wasn't a question. It was a complaint. You shouldn't be here. I held up the tin, smiling, trying to act like everything was fine. Happy birthday, love. I made you Afghans. Mom's recipe. She looked at the tin. Then at me. Then back over her shoulder into the house. I looked past her. Reese was there in an expensive shirt, laughing with a group of people I didn't know. His parents were sitting on the couch I'd helped Megan pick out from the furniture shop in Perurua, drinking champagne from crystal flutes. There were platters of food, cheese boards, wine bottles, soft music, everyone dressed up and polished and smelling of cologne. And there I was. In my old cargo pants. My checked shirt. My work boots that I'd tried to polish but couldn't get the concrete dust out of the creases. holding a tin of homemade biscuits wrapped with a faded ribbon. I looked like I'd wandered in from a building site. "Thanks, Dad," Megan said. She took the tin from my hands and glanced at it the way you glance at a flyer someone hands you on the street. Then she put it down on the front step. On the concrete step. Like it was rubbish. "We're sort of in the middle of something. I'll ring you later, yeah?" She took a step back. Already closing the door. "Megan, but the door was shut." She closed it. In my face. In the face of her father, who had driven 20 minutes with a tin of biscuits made with her dead mother's recipe. She closed the door and left me on the porch of the house I had bought with 25 years of my life. I stood there, I don't know how long, listening to the laughter inside, the clink of glasses, the music. I looked down. The tin was on the step, the ribbon already coming undone from the damp. I thought about picking it up. Taking it home. But I couldn't bend down because if I did, I would have collapsed right there on that porch. So I turned around. And I walked. Slowly at first, then faster, down the path, past the expensive cars, along the street, back to my Hilux parked around the corner. I sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the wheel and my eyes burning, and I didn't move for 10 minutes. If you're listening to this and you know this feeling, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Sometimes knowing there are people out there who understand gives me the strength to keep going. 3 weeks after the birthday, I got sick. Started with a headache. Then the chills. Then a fever that climbed to 39, then 40. My whole body ached. My joints, my back, even my teeth hurt. I called Megan at 11 in the morning on a Tuesday. She answered on the 6th ring. "Dad." Her voice was impatient. "Megan, love. I'm not well. Got a bad fever. I'm on my own and I don't think I can get to the doctor." There was a pause. Voices in the background. Reese laughing at something. "Dad, I can't come right now. I'm at a work thing. Just take some Panadol and get some sleep. If you're still crook tomorrow, ring Healthline." She hung up. "Make yourself some Panadol." That's what she told me. As if 2 tablets were going to fix a 69-year-old man with a fever of 40, living alone. I spent 2 days in bed. 2 days shaking, sweating, barely able to get to the kitchen for water. The fridge had a block of cheese going hard at the edges and half a loaf of Tip Top. Nothing else. My neighbor Maureen found me on the 2nd evening when she knocked to drop off some feijoas from her tree and I didn't answer the door. She used the spare key I'd given her for emergencies. Found me in bed, shivering, half delirious. She rang the after-hours GP and sat with me until midnight. Megan didn't ring. Not that day. Not the next. I found out later she'd been in Queenstown with Reese, at a wine festival. When the fever broke, I rang Megan to tell her I'd been properly ill. That Maureen had to come in. "Oh, yeah." She cut me off, her voice flat. "Good, you're better, Dad. Listen, I'm actually in a meeting. Can we catch up later?" No concern. No guilt. No sorry I wasn't there. It was the voice of someone answering the phone out of obligation, already thinking about hanging up. She didn't ring back. And that's when it happened. That night, 3 weeks after the birthday, a week after the fever, I was lying in bed unable to sleep. I picked up the phone and opened Facebook. Scrolled through without thinking. And that's when I saw them. The photos. My daughter in a white dress. A man in a blue suit. An arch covered in greenery. 60-something guests raising their glasses in golden afternoon light. Posted 18 hours ago. I pulled the phone so close to my face the screen light burned my eyes. I zoomed in on every photo. The venue, somewhere in Marlborough by the look of it, vineyards stretching up into hills. The long table with crystal and white linen. The cake, 3 tiers, covered in flowers. The groom's parents, arms around Megan, beaming. Reese lifting Megan off her feet while everyone cheered. 60 guests. 60 people who knew about the wedding. 60 people who were invited, who were there, who mattered. And I, her father, the man who worked 42 years so she could have a better life, the man who gave her a house, the man who held her mother's hand while she died because Megan couldn't be bothered to show up. I found out 18 hours later by scrolling Facebook in the dark. I read the caption again. The best day of our lives. Surrounded by the people who truly matter. The people who truly matter. And I wasn't one of them. I read the comments. There were hundreds. The groom's father had written, "Welcome to the family, sweetheart. We couldn't be prouder." Megan had replied with a heart. The groom's mother had written, "You finally have a family that appreciates you. A family that appreciates you." As if I hadn't appreciated her. As if giving her my entire life wasn't enough. I put the phone down and sat in the dark for a long time. Cars went past outside. The street light threw orange lines across the ceiling. Somewhere a dog barked. And I sat there, still, empty, feeling something inside me change forever. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. The kind of clarity you get when you've been staring at something blurry for years and someone finally hands you the right glasses. My daughter was ashamed of me. Not by accident. Not by oversight. By choice. She had planned a wedding for months, picked a venue, sent invitations, organized catering, chosen flowers, and at no point in any of those months did it cross her mind to ring her father and say, "Dad, I'm getting married." 3 days later, I rang her. She answered on the 5th ring. "Dad." She sounded breezy. Relaxed. Like nothing had happened. "Megan." I saw the photos on Facebook. Your wedding photos. The silence that followed told me everything. She knew that I knew. And she didn't care enough to have told me first. "You got married?" I said it even though I already knew. I needed her to say it. Yes. One word. Dry. No explanation. "Why didn't you tell me?" "It was a small thing, Dad. Just close family and friends." Close family. The words hit me like a slap. I counted the tables. There were over 60 people, Megan. A photographer. A venue. That's not small. That's a wedding you chose not to invite me to. Silence. "Dad, don't make this a big deal. Don't make this a big deal." My daughter got married without telling me, and I was the one making it a big deal. "Why?" I asked. "Just tell me why." She sighed. "Because I knew you'd do this. Make me feel guilty. Make everything about you. Reese's family, they're different, Dad. They're polished. And I just didn't want it to be awkward." There it was. Awkward. I was the awkwardness. The trot-eye father with the rough hands and the old shirt and the flat and Mora. I was the stain on her perfect day. "So you hid me," I said. It wasn't a question. "It's not like that." "Yes it is, Megan. You hid me like I was something to be ashamed of." "Dad, I have to go. Reese and I are about to board a flight. We'll talk when I'm back." She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table until the sun went down. The tea went cold. The shadows moved across the floor. And I replayed the conversation until every word was burned into my memory. It was just easier this way. That's what she meant, even if she didn't say it in those exact words. Easier to erase me than to defend me. Easier to hide me than to introduce me with pride. Easier to pretend I didn't exist than to stand beside me and say, "This is my dad. He built houses for 42 years. He saved every cent he had to give me a home. He held my mother's hand while she died. He's the reason I'm standing here today." That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and something shifted. Something hardened. Something that had been broken for years finally stopped hurting. Not because it healed. Because it died. The next morning, I got up at 6. Made a strong coffee. Went to the bedroom wardrobe and pulled out the metal box where Joan and I kept our important papers. I opened it and took out the title deed. Property at 14 Rentoul Street, Pet 1. Owner, Neville James Pascoe. My name. My signature. My property. I searched every page for any mention of a transfer. Any document with Megan's name. There was nothing. Because I never did it. The solicitor's fees were steep, and I kept thinking, no rush, it'll all be hers when I'm gone. But the legal owner, the only name on that title, was mine. I sat with that piece of paper for a long time. I thought about every nail I'd hammered. Every Saturday job. Every holiday I'd never taken. Every time Joan said, Nev, let's just go to Kapiti for the weekend, and I said, not yet, love. Next year. But next year never came. Because every dollar went into that account. Every dollar went toward that house. I got dressed. Clean trousers, good shirt. I picked up the phone and dialed Mr. Braithwaite, a solicitor in Lower Hutt who'd handled Joan's estate. Mr. Braithwaite, I need to sell a property. Today. There was a pause. Today? Mr. Pascoe, these things usually take weeks. Months, even. You need evaluation, marketing, open homes. No, I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it was. I want it done fast. As fast as legally possible. Can you help me or not? He asked me to come in at 10. I was there at 1:45. He sat me down, offered me a coffee, and listened. I didn't tell him everything. I just told him I owned a property, my daughter was living in it, but legally it was mine, and I wanted to sell. He made some calls. By lunchtime, he had a buyer. A property investor who'd been looking in Pet 1. He was willing to pay $420,000 and settle within a fortnight if the title was clean. The title was clean. It had always been clean. There was only one name on it. Mine. I signed the papers that afternoon. My hand didn't shake. I wrote my name clearly, firmly, the way I'd written it on the original deed 8 years earlier. The solicitor witnessed it. The contract was binding. Done. I walked out into the hot afternoon. The wind was coming up from the south, that cold bite that Wellington people know too well. I sat on a bench outside the library and took out my phone. Now came the hard part. I dialed Megan's number. She answered on the second ring. Dad. Casual. Careless. Megan, I said. I need you to move out of the house within 14 days. Silence. Then a confused laugh, like she thought I was joking. What? The house on Rentoul Street. I've sold it. The new owner takes possession in a fortnight. The laugh died. What are you talking about? That's my house. You gave it to me. I gave you the keys, I said. I told you it was yours. But I never put your name on the title. Legally, it's been mine this whole time. And this morning, I signed the sale agreement. The explosion was instant. You can't do that. She screamed. Her voice cracked through the phone like a whip. That is my home. Reese and I live there. We just got married. Yes, I said. You just got married. Without telling me. Without inviting me. Without even having the decency to ring your father and say I'm walking down the aisle tomorrow. I found out on Facebook, Megan. Facebook. 18 hours after it happened. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. That house was a gift. A gift from a father who loved his daughter more than anything in the world. But a gift means something only if the person giving it is valued. And you showed me exactly how much you value me. You showed me I'm not even worth a phone call. Her breathing was ragged. I could hear Reese in the background, asking what was going on. Dad, please. Please don't do this. We can talk about it. I'll come over. We'll sort it out. There's nothing to sort out, I said. The papers are signed. You have 14 days. I hung up. Turned the phone off completely. Sat on that bench while the southerly blue and the light faded and the streetlights flickered on one by one. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like myself again. When I got home and turned the phone back on, there were 38 missed calls. All from Megan. And messages. Dozens of them. Dad, please pick up. Dad, I'm begging you. Dad, you can't do this. Dad, I'm sorry. Dad, please. Reese's family is going to think we're homeless. Dad, please. I read every single one. And I felt nothing. Well, not nothing. I felt a grim kind of recognition. Now she was ringing. Now I was urgent. Now I existed. But not because she loved me. Because she needed something from me. She showed up at my door the next morning at 7. Counting. Hard. Desperate. I opened it. She looked wrecked. Red eyes, hair uncombed, wearing track pants and a hoodie I hadn't seen since she was at university. She looked, for a moment, like my little girl again. The one who ran down the hall screaming, "Daddy's home." "We need to talk," she said, her voice cracking. I stepped aside and let her in. She stood in the middle of my small lounge, fists clenched, tears streaming. "How could you do this to me?" I sat down in my armchair and looked at her. Calm. Steady. "How could I do what, Megan?" "Sell the house." "My house?" "Without telling me." I didn't answer straight away. I let her words hang in the air. Then I said, quietly, "I found out about your wedding on Facebook, 18 hours after it happened. You found out about the house sale with a direct phone call. And you're asking me how I could do this without telling you." She blinked. Her mouth opened. Closed. "That's different," she whispered. "No," I said. "It's exactly the same." She started pacing, pulling at her hair. "Dad, Reese, and I just got married. We can't afford rent right now. He's between jobs. His parents are going to think," "His parents," I said, and the word came out harder than I intended. "The same parents who were at your wedding. The same parents who called you sweetheart and said they were proud of you. The same parents whose mother wrote that you finally have a family that appreciates you. Go live with them." "Dad, no," I said. "Tell me something, Megan. Did you want me at your wedding?" The silence gave me the answer. She looked at the floor. Her hands shook. "Reese thought," she started. "I don't care what Reese thought," I said. "I care what you thought. You, Megan. My daughter. Did you want me there?" "I thought it would be," her voice was a whisper now, "easier without you there." Easier. That word. The same word the man in the original story heard. The word that ends everything. I nodded slowly. Easier. It was easier to erase me than to stand up to your husband's family and say, "This is my dad. He's a builder. His hands are rough because he spent 42 years building houses so I could have a life. He's the reason I exist." Tears were pouring down her face now. "Dad, I love you." "No," I said, and I heard my own voice crack for the first time. "You love what I gave you. You love the free house. You love the silent sacrifice. But me, Neville Pascoe, the man with the crooked knuckle and the concrete dust under his nails, you're ashamed of me." "That's not true." "Then explain why I wasn't at your wedding. Explain why you put my biscuits on the front step like rubbish. Explain why when I was lying in bed with a 40-degree fever, you told me to take a Panadol and went to a wine festival." She had no answer. Because there was no answer. The truth was right there in front of us, and it was ugly, and it was final. She slumped onto the couch. Dad, forgive me. Please. I know I was wrong. But please don't take the house. I can't, Megan, I said softly. Forgiveness is for honest mistakes. For a moment of thoughtlessness. But this was months of planning a wedding and deliberately leaving me out. This was a decision. And decisions have consequences. But I'm your daughter. I know, I said. And that house was everything I had. 42 years of work. 25 years of saving. Every holiday I didn't take. Every car I didn't buy. Every time your mom wanted to go to Kapiti for the weekend and I said no because the money had to go into that account. I gave it all to you. And it wasn't enough. I was never enough. She sat there for a long time, crying quietly. Then she stood up. I'll never forgive you for this, she said at the door. That's all right, I said. I'm not sure I'll forgive you either. The door closed with a soft click. And I sat in my armchair in the quiet of my flat, looking out the window at the hills, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of having everything sorted. Not the peace of a happy ending. The peace of knowing I would never again beg for love from someone who considered me an embarrassment. The peace of knowing I still had something left that no one could take away. Myself. The money from the sale went into my account. $420,000. I used some of it to fix up my flat. New carpet. A decent heater for winter. I booked a trip to the Kapiti coast. Just for a weekend. The first holiday I've taken in 30 years. Joe would have been happy. I joined a community workshop group in Lower Hutt. Bunch of retired blokes who make furniture and fix things for people in the neighborhood. We drink tea from chipped mugs and talk rubbish and laugh. It's not much. But it's mine. Megan and I don't speak. Reese's parents didn't take them in, as it turns out. They're renting a flat in Kilburney. I don't know the details and I don't ask. Maureen told me she saw Megan at the supermarket and she looked tired. I felt a pang in my chest when I heard that. A small one. Because she's still my daughter. She always will be. But I've learned something it took me 69 years to understand. Love without respect is not love. It's servitude. And giving everything to someone who values nothing is not generosity. It's self-destruction. You teach people how to treat you. And for decades, I taught my daughter that I would accept anything. Any excuse. Any silence. Any closed door. I taught her that my love had no conditions, no limits, no floor. And she learned the lesson perfectly. She learned that I was free. And people don't value what's free. If you're a parent listening to this, I want you to hear me. Love your children. Give them everything you can. But not everything you are. Keep something for yourself. Keep your dignity. Keep your self-respect. Because the day they decide you're not good enough, and some of them will, you need to have enough left to walk away and still be whole. I sit in my armchair most evenings now. I make a cup of tea. I watch the news. Sometimes Maureen comes round and we have a yarn. The flat is small and quiet, but it's mine. And for the first time in years, that's enough. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Megan. I think about the little girl who ran down the hall. The one who sat on the kitchen bench sneaking raw Afghan mix. The one who hugged me so hard the day I gave her the keys that I thought my ribs would break. And I wonder where she went. I wonder when the girl who said I will never forget what you've done for me became the woman who closed the door in my face. I don't have the answer. Maybe I never will. But I know this. I did everything a father could do. I gave everything a man could give. And it wasn't enough. But that's not my failure. That's hers. And sitting here, in my small flat in Mora, with my cup of tea and my quiet evening and the hills outside my window turning purple in the last light, I know one thing for certain. I would rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by people who are ashamed of who I am. What would you have done? Would you have kept giving? Kept begging? Kept waiting by the phone for a call that never comes? Or would you have done what I did? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched something inside you, hit subscribe. You're not alone in this. There are thousands of people who know what it feels like to be invisible to someone who's supposed to love you. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember this. You are enough. You were always enough. And anyone who makes you feel otherwise doesn't deserve what you built with your own two hands.